Welcome, everyone. We've got plenty for the agenda today. Steve, can you just so I'm... Wait, I'll do this.
What do you want me to do?
I was going to ask you to monitor the chat. Still monitor the chat for me, but I think I can do side by side here and still have everybody can still reasonably read this over here.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So let's get started. First of all, we shipped something called PowerShell Core 6.1 last week. Hopefully you guys have seen the blog post on that. I'll link to it in the notes below. But we are really excited about the release. The big line items here were that we moved to .NET Core 2.1, which allowed us to take advantage of the Windows compatibility pack for .NET Core, which allowed us to support a whole boatload of modules that currently ship in Windows 10 and Windows Server 2019. Now, a lot of these modules are going to continue to work on the OSs where they are, but one thing that I maybe wasn't as clear about as I should have been in the release notes is that the sort of magic enlightenment where PowerShell Core picks up modules without having to add anything to PS module path or without having to, guess whether or not the module is compatible. Great. Anyone else seeing my screen right now?
No, your screen is not showing anymore.
Oh, great. Okay, I will unplug and plug back in. Yeah, basically, you're not going to get that magic enlightenment until the October 2018 update for Win 10 or Windows Server 2019. Accept meeting content, is that what you have to do? Anybody see it now?
Yep, working.
Yep. Okay. Yep. So if you do want that magic enlightenment, check it out in an insider build today. Hopefully, most of you are fixing forward on Windows 10, and then Server 2019 is going to have those module manifests marked up as well for that. So again, we're talking about 70% of commandlets. One thing that was missing as well from the release notes that was enumerated pretty quickly after our release is that we've not listed all the modules that are compatible. I think that's an obvious ask from you guys, and I plan on doing that in the next couple weeks here after Ignite business dies down. So, yeah, are there any questions on the release at a high level? Did anybody have any issues with the upgrade process? Hopefully that went smoothly for everyone. That's just a matter of updating your packages. Problems, that's good to hear.
So, Darwin, we would accept any pull request to make it work on Amazon Linux.
I think Darwin was simply replying to Trevor up above, saying that...
Oh, should... I wasn't sure if should is a...
I fixed it at one point.
Okay.
I was just saying, yeah, like if you want it on Amazon Linux, run this, right?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Like a requirement, not an actual feature.
Right. Good to hear the upgrade to 6.1 went smoothly on Brew. Which list is smaller, modules that work with 6.1 or those who don't? For the ones shipping in Windows, the ones that don't are the smaller list. I think it is 70% of commandlets, and I think it's something like 63% of modules or something like that.
70% of the inbox commandlets.
Yes, the inbox commandlets. So these are modules that are either installed by default or get installed as part of role and feature installation. So this is your Hyper-V, networking, storage, that sort of thing. So again, I want to publish a list of those, and then we can put out a list as well of the modules that we know don't work, possibly why they don't work. In many of these cases, we expect .NET Core 3.0 to bring back a bunch of APIs in the future that will allow us to continue enabling more modules. And even without 3.0, we hope in the next milestone that is our, I think we're on roughly 6-month cadence here with Windows. The one following October 2018 will have an additional set of modules that we're able to validate and mark as compatible. So cool. Any more questions on that, Steve? Do you have anything to add? Anybody else in the room?
The only thing I just want to add about the 6.1 release, I think with the 6.1 release, we've come to a point where we can actually have the stable and preview channels. we were kind of doing some of that work in progress during the 6.1 previews. So that means that anyone that was on 6.04, when they update, should get 6.1. That is expected. That's on a stable channel. And then if you're on 6.1 RC1, then when we get 6.2 preview 1 out, that will be the update over that one. So those are 2 independent channels. That's how we're going to go going forward. You can have those side by side. And if you need any other versions, if you need 6.0 side by side with 6.1, then just use the zip package on Windows or use one of the zip or tar GZ packages on Linux.
So 6.1 RC will update to 6.2 preview 1, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so we talked about this earlier, but basically we want to get to a point where these preview releases are sort of happening, quote unquote, automatically, with as little manual intervention as possible, so that something like a GA release will not actually impact our ability to continue shipping previews of what's in master. So that's something really. What's that?
I was just going to say, does that mean they're the exact same release, or you mean as something's added, they'll update to?
As it is added, yeah. So this just means that the preview train that 6.1 is on will be updated to 6.2 preview 1 when it is released. So 6.10 RC is not the same as 6.1. I know this is it's a little wonky. Like, I'm somebody that runs preview as my daily driver all day, and obviously I want to upgrade to 6.1 stable when it comes out, but then I'm going to want to upgrade to 6.2 preview 1. So, that's just something like in the future. This, you can sort of think of this for those of you that do Windows Insiders as the skip fast track, right? So like the idea is that you basically say, hey, I'm skipping the stable build. Don't take me down the the branch towards GA release. Just keep me on the master track and keep taking the preview bits. But we just haven't revved those preview bits yet.
Yeah, so I think the thing I'll add there is right now we have a small hiccup because the team is at capacity to kind of do a release because there's still a lot of manual process involved today. So the idea is hopefully during a 6.2 time frame, and which leads directly into the next topic here, is that my team will be spending more time on automation. So that ideally, if we need to do a 6.1 servicing release, and we have a 6.2 GA that's happening, and then we have a 6.3 preview, all that should just be automated so that all the stuff happens could potentially happen at the same time, which means that if you're on the preview channel, you will always be on the latest, greatest, and if we do our things right, then it should be passing all our tests anyways. So from a quality perspective, it should be fully useful. Maybe we would not recommend it for production, but it'd be fully. The bug bar should not go down, so the quality should want to go up, hypothetically. So that's kind of where we're trying to get to during the 6.2 timeframe.
Yeah. So the pivot here is that 6.2 is going to likely be a fairly minor release from a feature standpoint. We will be continuing to triage PRs. We're going to continue, adding some delighters here and there, and there's some work that we've committed to, internally for various partner teams in 6.2. But primarily, we want to spend a bunch of time on the release automation. Another aspect that we've identified as a pretty large, piece of debt is the documentation. So we're going to be, doing some sort of docathons and trying to not only revise or not only sort of catch up on this amount of debt that we've accrued for the documentation, but also we want to revise our processes going forward to make sure that feature code is not getting checked in without documentation happening. So, we would obviously love for community members to write their documentation for PRs that they submit, but we also recognize that there is sort of increased barrier to contributions if we require that. Certainly it happened for tests. For some people that's too difficult of a bar, but we've made that trade-off to say that we need the tests to come from the community members. But with docs, we may try and help backfill that for some period of time. But ultimately, we would love your help if you're submitting PRs to write documentation for that feature as well. And that's, I'm sure that other folks do this as well. But one person I want to call out is Mark Krause for like we went back and looked and he's filled in documentation for all the web commandlet stuff, all the new parameters added, which has just been really helps us out and is in many cases better than we did in the 6.1 timeframe. So kind of standard that we're trying to set going forward.
I know that there are some people who are reluctant to write the documentation because they're not native English speakers.
Yes.
And I think it's fine, go ahead, and we can help with that. It's better to start with a partial document
Yes.
than to start from scratch on something you didn't write. So.
Yeah, so in the same way that, like you don't have to be an amazing guru coder just to submit a PR and get some code review. We will help and be nice and not come after you just because your first is not perfect.
Mine is never perfect.
Mine is definitely never perfect.
And while we're talking about contributions, the other place, because we were talking about tests, is if people can contribute to the tests, which is a good way to get started. You don't need to know C#, and it's relatively easy to write a test. That'd be a fantastic way for people to get started on contributing.
Yeah, and definitely I will. I'll just do an overall link to the contributing.md just in case folks don't know where that is. But yeah, there's all kinds of ways that you can contribute, and test cases are really awesome. Yeah, engineering team will back.
And for folks contributing to documentation, also take a look at the contributing MD and the docs repo.
Yes, absolutely. I will link to both.
And check it often because we're tweaking it and we're open to input as well. So if you have feedback on the contributor guide, let me know.
Yeah, and that's another way that you can contribute. I mean, if you are feel really comfortable writing documentation, then there's a lot of stuff that still needs help. To answer your question, Stefan, in a lot of cases this is reference documentation, so it's it's basically adding a parameter to a markdown file that already has a sort of schema, and the CI is going to run validation against that thing and generate the mammal and the cabs and tell you whether or not you have any problems with that. So it's pretty self-explanatory. Most of this stuff is just markdown, but definitely I'll link to that contributing.md, and I think it'll be even more clear. Yeah, so for join string, in that case, you basically run platypus against join string, the implementation, and then you're going to get this template out of that and upload that to the PowerShell docs repository. Again, I think it'll be roughly clear, but like if it's not, and we're missing a gap there in terms of telling people that are contributing brand new commandlets how to generate that, then we can certainly fill it in. Cool.
And Stefan, I didn't actually ask you to write the docs. I simply suggested it was a good idea. That we would have appreciated it.
Steve, do you want to talk about anything else in regards to 6.2?
No, I think you kind of covered it. Like, again, we're going to spend a lot of time working on automating some of our stuff. There will be some things that I'll probably talk more about at PowerShell Conference Asia in terms of some of the features that we are looking into. So I guess wait for them in October.
Totally. So one of the things, and this is kind of a segue, this will be happening going forward into 6.2, but we were sitting around the table yesterday for our committee meeting and debating whether or not a breaking change was worth making in 6.2, and is this thing do we know the scope of the breaking change? How are people going to be impacted by this? And we realized that there was this awesome feature that we shipped in PowerShell 6.1 that Dongbo worked on for experimental feature flags. And so we want to do this a lot more going forward. This is basically a way for us to enable opt-in or create opt-in features that people essentially have to run some commandlet or I think they need to twiddle a value in a config file.
Yes.
For the experimental feature flag.
To turn on experimental feature, they have to add it in the configuration file and start function.
Right. So So something like this breaking change, which I don't actually remember what the specific impetus was when we were talking about it in the committee call yesterday.
What is that?
It was the PS object.
The file,
File
yes,
system.
file system.
Oh, yes.
File system provider adding.
The get content. Which one is that? File system one.
Yeah, it was
Yes.
the get content dash raw. There was a debate about whether or not we should change the default behavior for get content decorating.
I think the one we talked about is the issue Stefan opened about get child item.
Right.
There's like turning the no properties into code properties to reduce the memory usage and maybe
Yes. It was the perf one. It was not related to the dash raw, right? So yeah, there was a performance issue that Stefan had opened. It seemed like the impact for the breaking change were low, but we, to be honest, really weren't sure. And so we realized that implementing this thing as an experimental feature would be awesome because it would allow us to, ship this in preview without committing to making the breaking change and actually test it and find out whether or not, even in our own set of scripts, whether, any functionality was broken as a result of that. So in having this conversation, we realized that we really don't have a process today for adding experimental features. Ideally, the point of experimental features here is that a community member can write code or a PowerShell team member can write code without going through the RFC process in the spirit of experimenting and trying to find out whether or not something is worth pursuing, right? This is, in our pursuit of agility, we don't always want to spec out the perfect world of how this feature might look before we're able to put hands on keyboards and write code. And so, we want to sort of open the gates a little bit to let stuff in a little more leniently via the experimental feature flags. The problem is we don't want to accept everything, right? And so we really need some set of criteria to say this is what we're willing to take on, and then an additional set of criteria for what happens when the experiment fails. When we decide the experiment fails, and if there's any kind of time limit or expiration date on feature flags just sitting around for forever. So community member, contributes a basic minimum viable feature, and people say, oh, this is kind of worthwhile, but no one's able to pick up the slack on actually getting it implemented. Do we leave it in forever? Do we look at it after 6 months or a year, and do we purge our feature flags on a GA release? All these possibilities we just really haven't thought about, and so we're really open to feedback on this, and we hope that you guys are sort of work with us going forward to figure out where the right line is, but we're gonna be sort of evolving this over time. Any questions on that, Steve? Did you want to add anything? Anybody else?
No, I think you got it. I think we'll learn more as people start using it, and we're going to start using it ourselves. So.
Cool. Yeah, so this is just, it's going to be an ongoing thing. So I've actually got the DSC roadmap blog here. Do you want to talk to that?
Yeah, sure. I'll just kind of go through it top to bottom at a very high level. So the DSC community over the course of the summer was extremely active. We now have over 1,300 resources in the gallery, which is really awesome coverage. Admittedly, a small portion of that is overlap because we are phasing out the experimental naming convention. So some of those are the same resource but renamed, but it actually doesn't make up that much of a percentage. We've analyzed what got published, and it's actually just a lot of new resources. And we're seeing what we hoped to see, which is not all of them are going into the DSC resources repo. A number of people are feeling empowered to be the maintainer, host the project in their own repo, and then publish it to the gallery with the appropriate tags and metadata. So it doesn't have to be centered on that DSC resources community repo, but that still remains the place people can go for submitting issues, for peer reviews, notifying the community that new resources are available, etc. There's a ton of new work going on around DSC. I've been talking a lot about the new DSC v2 platform. Right now, that's being used in solutions in Azure. I mentioned at conferences last spring that we hope to make that open source by the end of the summer. Unfortunately, because of all the new work we've been taking on, we've had to adjust that timeline. And I don't have a new expectation that I'm ready to set yet on when we'll be looking at open sourcing the new DSC platform. But we just couldn't, I didn't want to just share code. I wanted to make sure that if we were creating a new open source project, that we could be responsible maintainers and put the right amount of time into taking on PRs and issues. And we weren't able to allocate those engineering resources for this semester. So. There's a number of new features coming in Server 2019 for the version of the DSC v1 that ships in Windows Server, so you can take a look at the blog post for more information on that. And there was our first ever security update for DSC in Windows released in September. And there's more information about that in the KB, but effectively it comes down to previously we were writing to the temp folder during the process of applying a configuration, and that no longer will be the case. We will only be working with information in memory. And there were some issues where the temp folder, the temp files could get locked and might actually not get cleaned up and could have caused problems. So that is basically everything. For more details, just go to blogs.msdn.com/PowerShell, and you can see the whole blog post there.
And I'll be linking you to it in the notes here before I ship them up.
Sounds great.
Hey, Michael?
Yeah.
Stefan had a question about the DSC resources. Like, you indicated there's a large number, which is awesome, but is there any way to make any kind of quality statement about them?
Yes. So for every resource, if you here's the narrative that or not the narrative, but the process or journey that I follow. I start with PowerShell Gallery. I search for a resource and find the context that I want. Then follow that back to the project page. The nice thing is there's a community maintained centralized test repo. It's github.com/PowerShell/DSC resources.test. But effectively, everybody just adds that to their app.layer build script. It clones the repo in and runs those set of tests. So you can just look at the build badge on any given DSC resource repo and make sure that it has passed all of the quality bars that the community has agreed upon. Or if not, then you can see why and make a judgment call. But, that community repo for agreeing upon how things should be tested has actually been really helpful in driving up quality.
Let's see, there's a question. The Server 2019 with DSC v1 isn't the same as LCM version. If so, it should be 2.0.
It won't be 2.0. I'll take a look. Actually, that's a good thing to go look at. I'll go find out what is the versioning of LCM that we'll call it for 2019. It's a good question.
Cool.
There's also some changes to Pull Server for Server 2019 where it now supports SQL as a database backend, and you can tune the eSent database performance. So that's also covered in that blog.
Awesome. Lots of good stuff there. Thank you for that. I have one thing, and this is a random one that I'm just remembering here, and I didn't talk to Steve about this one either, so we're just going to have fun. So we made a mistake just because of the way the timing worked out with the 6.1 release, which is that we did not ship PowerShell Get 2.0 as part of that package. So 2.0 PowerShell Get was revved to a new major version because it made a breaking change in that it defaults the scope to current user. It's also needed for some of the improvements that were made in the NuGet v3, and I'm blanking right now on the specifics of those. But basically, there's sort of a concern that, while we could have made this breaking change in 6.1, ideally in 6.1 RC, documented it, and then shipped 2.0 as part of 6.1, if we make it now in 6.1.1, then we're essentially introducing a breaking change in a servicing build. So I don't personally want to wait until 6.2 to publish PowerShell Get 2.0 because it is useful in these new V2 scenarios or V3 scenarios, but I also don't know what the impact of that changing would be. So is there, this is really just a gut check right now. I think we'd want to do some other analysis, but does anyone on the call feel like if the scope of PowerShell Get was changed in a servicing release of 6.1 that would impact your scripts? Yes, you need a 1.6.7 plus to publish. Okay. Yeah, Edwin, so what is there, what's the major benefit of 2.0 then? Because I thought that there was a big...
Yeah, the scope current user was really the big feature, I think.
That's the only reason we didn't call it 1.6.8. Right? There's no kind of massive functional difference in there.
The highly desired request.
I could have sworn that you had put in the blog something about, because this...
Yeah, in the blog it says 1.6.8, but then since it was a breaking change, they changed it to 2.0.
No, I understand that, but it was... oh, yeah, so I thought that you needed 2.0 to publish, but you're saying 1.6.7 works?
If you just run, 1.6.8, I forget if it's 1.6.8 or 1.6.7, one or the other. Oh, there isn't a 1.6.8, so it's 1.6.7. Sorry. So that one will allow you to publish the gallery. 1.6 won't, and 2.0 will work as well. So if you're using something old, you'll need to upgrade to one or the other.
Okay, so there's really not a huge need for 2.0 then.
Here's my thoughts, and then, like Joey said, we didn't really talk about it in detail yet. Because it's a break-in change, I don't think we should take break-in changes in any servicing release. It just doesn't make sense. And people can always install module themselves if they want 2.0.
Yeah, I mean the only pain there is that updating PowerShell Get with PowerShell Get is still annoying. And I don't think there's anything we can do about that because it's just you got to restart the run space and get the new one. And same with package management. But yeah, I think in principle I just kind of agree because it's Friedrich, I'm with you. I've been doing the same thing. My profile's had that for years, but I worry about CI. I mean, ideally everyone is always specifying scope and not relying on the default, but I know that doesn't happen in reality. So we'll go back and talk about it. I just wanted to kind of get a gut check. Whatever it would break would be worth it to me. That's good to hear. I mean, it could affect some kind of CI if the user is not using save module when they should be, and they're using install module and going and looking for the program files file path. But
usually in CI they use current scope or current user
right,
scope.
but does it default to user scope or does it fall back to user scope?
It defaults to user scope.
So if you run it in an elevated process, it still defaults to user scope?
No.
Right. So what I'm saying is the only thing that's affected is things that used to fail. Right?
Not quite. So if you look at the release notes, it'll explain it in excruciating detail. But basically, for PowerShell 6.x, we wanted to go to the simplest and clearest behavior going forward, allowing us to kind of ignore a little bit of the backwards compatibility stuff. So for PowerShell Core, it just defaults to current user. It doesn't care whether you're elevated or not. That's partly because whether you're elevated or not becomes more complicated if you start including Macs and Linux in the whole discussion.
Okay. That does sound like a more significant thing. Sorry.
Yeah, so I think we'll take this feedback and go back and ultimately make a decision. I think I want to talk to Keith Bankston as well about this before we make a call. But in any case, I think this is a lot of good feedback, and I know that it's something that everybody wants. Like we've all wanted the default user scope for forever. It's just, yeah, I think that is happening on Windows PowerShell, Keith. So I don't know. We'll go back and talk about it some more, and I apologize for springing it on everybody without a prep here, but which was something we wanted to gut check.
Is there a way to say I want machine scope or die? No fallbacks, no doing other tricky stuff.
Specify the scope explicitly. If you say scope all user, it will just try to use scope all user, and there's no fallback. The same for current user.
PS default parameters. Put that in your profile.
No, but he's just saying to make sure that he was asking if specifying scope all users would fall back to user scope if it wasn't able to proceed.
No, the question was, I want to be machine scope or die.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So in that case, you set it explicitly in your profile as PS default parameters, and then
so you can use explicit parameters.
Yeah, which is
for automating servers. For automating servers when there will be different users coming in to use it. So yeah, so I don't want my profile.
So it's.
So Stefan was asking about the -4 skip publisher, allow collabor, accept license, allow pre-release. It is a great question.
Yeah. Sure, I'll take this one. So I totally recognize that there is a lot of different flags and a lot of different complications and wrinkles, and it's a lot less easy than it really should be. I'm keen to fix it, but I'm reluctant to sort of just say here, hey, we're going to fix it, because honestly, when not everybody is totally agreed on exactly what fixing it really means. You noticed even here we had a bit of debate about like current user and what it meant, etc. So anytime we screw with those flags, what they mean and whether you need them or not, we need to debate it fairly carefully to make sure that we don't screw anything up. There are definitely, and the other thing is, some of this stuff came in via kind of security review. So there was some concern that, like, oh, if I install module something and it overrides commands that I thought I was getting from some other module, then it can hijack some behavior that I want, things like that. So I get it. I totally understand that it's annoying. I curse this stuff very frequently myself. I've read the entire thread on the PowerShell Get issue, which is like 50 comments long. So we need to work out exactly what the right behavior is, but I understand that people want it to be better.
Hey, Edwin, I think when you guys come to a conclusion on a proposal, I recommend authoring an RFC and put it in the PowerShell RC repo.
Sure.
Folks, to current user, I think, by the way, if I can add 2 cents here, the one thing that came to light recently for us in CI when trying to set up CIs to run on Windows in Azure DevOps pipelines, because so many things are missing and outdated. And we have some, like, for instance, we want Pester 4 as a dependency. And how do you do that without, like, just using -force, because you need force to get past the gallery isn't trusted nonsense. But we don't actually mean force because we don't want to install it if it's already installed. And that's a major problem. And I hate to say we need another switch, but we need another switch. Reality is what we ended up doing is saying this module isn't good enough. We have to use PS depends. Because PS depends is the only way that we can actually get the stupid thing installed without reinstalling it when we don't need to reinstall it. And that's a shame, and I think that PowerShell Get needs a feature that can do all of the PowerShell Get things that PS depend can do, if that makes sense. Meaning, I need to be able to say, these are the modules and the versions, and I need them, and I don't care. and I want them in scope user, or I want them saved, or I want them in machine, but I need to be able to say, this is what I need, just absolutely, here are all the force flags, but don't reinstall it. If it's already installed, I don't want to reinstall it. I just want to make sure they're all there. Now, PS Depends goes beyond that because they support all these other artifact types. You don't need to do that. PS Depends is great. If I need Git repos and downloaded files and NuGet packages and whatever, but I shouldn't need PS Depends when all I want is Pester to be running 4.4.
Sure.
Anyway, I just I want to say that as a separate thing because it is actually, I mean, it ends up being I need force, but what we're doing right now is literally temporarily forcing the gallery, trust the gallery, in order to be able to avoid using the dash force.
Sure.
Needed dash ensure.
Yeah, I mean, totally hear you, Joel. And one of the things, we've been looking at. I know Tyler was like playing with PS Depends for the first time the other day, and just feeling like there's a lot of good stuff there that we should use. And you're a Node guy, right? So there's
a lot of learnings from that.
So I think that. Without the constant npm package cache corruption issues. Yeah, I mean, I would, it's similar to a .NET restore, right? Or I don't know, whatever the pip install requirements.txt, that sort of thing. So, there's a question here whether PowerShell Get supports dependencies. Can I declare dependencies in their modules and module manifest? Yes, and if you dig deeper, you will run into some of the problems that these guys are talking about, namely that if you have a dependency on a specific version, and I'm gonna get it wrong here, but Joel just enumerated the problem.
It supports dependencies as long as they're not the dependency chain isn't too long, and you don't use version numbers in all of them, or none of them are pre-release, depending on other pre-releases, or there's a whole set of caveats. But yes, in general, it supports dependencies with no problem recursively, as long as you don't start getting really deep and really version numbered. The installer will handle it all, no problem. We have considered using a meta module as the only way to do what PS Depends does without PS Depends. To publish a module that just says, here's the set of modules that we think you need for this task.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Depends is great.
Yeah, we should look into it more, and it might be, I mean, we've followed this model before. We've not talked about this at all, but we have followed the model where we've blessed things in the community, or we've said that this is the way that we do them, or the way that we want everybody to do them, but we just haven't done the investigation there to find out where exactly the gaps are.
For what it's worth, it's possible that the problem that we're having with force could be fixed by just saying, if I specified the name of the gallery, if I say repository PS gallery, then don't ask me if I trust the PS gallery, because I said install it from there, right?
We've had a separate discussion about automatically installing from trusted galleries and things like that. But yeah, having a pre-trusted gallery.
Right. Well, and I don't
modules in the gallery.
Yeah. Well, see, my thing is, I don't want to advocate for you should pre-install PS Gallery as trusted. I do that on my dev boxes, but I wouldn't do it on our production boxes. We want the production boxes to get them from a private gallery. So I don't want to advocate for that, but what I do want to advocate for is that if I tell you which gallery to use, you shouldn't ask, do you want to trust this gallery?
Yeah, it's implicitly trusted, right?
Right. I will file that issue if I haven't already, but it's the workaround for fixing force is what I was thinking just now.
Right.
Understood. specifying a PS repository should possibly trust.
All right, so I don't want to miss a question that Darwin asked earlier about.
Yes, about the chocolatey repo.
Yeah, the chocolatey one.
Yeah, I do want to make it back up to that one as well. So, did you wanted to start on that one, Steve?
Well, not me. I want to make sure. From my point of view, Edwin owns this.
Sure.
I can also speak to some of this, Edwin, if
we agreed between ourselves that if anyone was going to set up a repo, then it would be me. But I haven't done it yet, and I don't have an ETA for exactly when we're going to do that.
Yeah, and additionally, I'm actually attending Chocolatey Fest on October 8th in San Francisco, which is also now WinOps San Francisco. So this would be, and to give everybody some context, so Darwin asked, hey, like you guys have talked about this Microsoft official Chocolatey repository. Is it something that's still happening, or when would that happen? It was still very much in a brainstorm phase when we talked about that first, and I think we're still there. I'm attending Chocolatey Fest with a guy named Yosef Dur, who's over on the Windows Developer Tools team and does a lot of the console work, WSL stuff, and they're also sort of doing some brainstorms on this as well. So I think that we want to go source a bunch of thoughts from people at Chocolatey Fest. We're doing a presentation on some sample Boxstar script, client-side development, and IT administration, and Azure work, and that sort of thing. But I think we want to understand, what the enterprise Chocolatey customer looks like, whether there's really a demand for this with the Chocolatey audience, what the volume might be, and that sort of thing. So this would be, and to answer your question, Ryan, this would be a trusted Microsoft repository for Microsoft first-party applications in Chocolatey. So it wouldn't necessarily just be PS Core, but it would be, essentially like our packages.microsoft.com repository for apt-get and Yum and all those package managers. But it would be only trusted assets coming directly from Microsoft and no one in the community. But again, we really need to go and understand whether or not this is a valuable thing to customers and to how many customers and that sort of thing. So we're having the conversations, and I think when we're ready to to come out and say that there might be something happening, it may not necessarily be coming from our organization, but it's folks are looking into this. So cool. I'm going to scroll back through the questions here. Install module fail in that instance. Import module might not. Source install binaries always be embedded in Microsoft Chocolatey packages. Could you rephrase that question, Darwin? I'm not sure what a source install means.
The binaries themselves, if they're inside your packages, then curation is super simple because you just grab the whole package. It's Microsoft official, where if it's pointers like Chocolatey, a lot of Chocolatey packages are for size reasons, then curation is packaging changes and downloading the binaries separately, etc.
Got it. I think I wasn't aware of the size constraint, but I was aware of the fact that there are some licensing issues around redistribution of Microsoft packages, which I think is the case for some of those, and that would obviously be alleviated by the fact that we are allowed to redistribute our own packages. I think we would definitely want to follow a Linux-like model where all the binaries are packed the Chocolatey repository. The only way that you really get assigned trust the whole way down the chain.
Awesome.
Cool. Awesome, and I will try and take some notes on that. Do we have anything else? Oh, we wanted to talk about the string commandlet RFC. We've got 10 more minutes. If anyone has any more questions and answers, we can answer them asynchronously as we go through this conversation. But I'm actually going to ping this one over to Bruce, who I think is familiar with the join string RFC. I have not read it yet, unfortunately.
It's not join string. It's just It's a general set of commandlets so that you can do string operations, a lot of the string operations that you would do from the command line or from operators in the command line. It eliminates a million parentheses. It's just really convenient to be able to apply these operators directly in the pipeline. So I really encourage Frederick to submit this PR and then didn't follow up appropriately.
Yeah, I think it's submitted at this point from an PR standpoint.
Yeah, it was a PR first, and then an RFC. There are some. What it really needs is a commandlet review, because some of the naming, for example, the same way we went through Staffan's join string. We made adjustments to the naming and made sure that the names were appropriate. So that's really what we need to do, is schedule a commandlet review for this stuff. Nothing's breaking, it's new commands.
Yeah, so I think we should definitely, if you plan to implement this, Friedrich, I think it's something that we should prioritize as part of our
He already has implemented it.
committee reviews. Is it basically done, Friedrich, at this point?
It is mostly done. There are some adjustments I still need to make based on feedback. One of the things from the PR I would totally drop is the aliases, because we just had too many conflicts on the nets for some of them. So it would just be the basic. But basically, from a functionality perspective, they're pretty much done. Unless I hear any more feedback, and I'm totally willing to handle the entire part of that if I just get marching orders for that.
Awesome. Well, I think we'd like to prioritize this then and do a commandlet review. Have the committee look through this, and this is one of those things that where we're doing all this milestone quality work. We can totally empower you guys to keep adding features to 6.2. While we're backfilling some of our tech debt. So it's awesome, and I think we should take a look at it. So thank you for bringing it to our attention.
And thank you for doing the work.
And thank you for doing the work. Yeah, that too. Thank you for writing the RFC and the commandlets.
Hey, Bruce, can you own scheduling that review?
Yes.
Cool. Awesome. So join string, Stefan was saying the only outstanding issue is whether it should support wildcards on properties to join. Not implemented yet, not convinced of the usefulness, adds complexity, not convinced it worth it, is it valuable? So I think we should, I will...
Yeah, if you use, so I think that was one of my comments. If you use the PS property expression, then there's very little complexity because it handles the wildcards for you. It handles script blocks for you, for example. So you'd be able to use a script block to reference the property. It's quite straightforward to use.
Yeah, but we should include this as part of our commandlet review and come back to it. But
well, this is a separate commandlet.
Oh, this is not part of the.
This is this
No,
is
we have kind of a command conflict because I'm fairly sure mine has also a join string.
Yes.
Got it. Okay, then we need to address that. Okay. Cool. FYI, unless it's been fixed, chocolatey packages that wrap MSUs can't run over Roni. Yeah, that's definitely a gap there, and yeah, the .NET runtime installers as well as WMF, of course. Yeah, and I'm
simple solution to that. You can specify credentials on your remoting.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is there a way to do that? You think through chocolatey? We'd have to address that.
I don't know how they're doing remoting. Was that Darwin? Darwin messaged me, and this is Travis. So, there are ways around that.
So if you just initiate your remoting connection with explicit
credentials rather than implicit, it'll But if you have trouble with that, message me offline. I can help you get it solved.
Cool. Yeah, and it's never. It's always a third party or not Chocolatey doing the remoting, so that's great information. Maybe it would be helpful if you guys do build packages for this kind of stuff that your error message would give that hint that they need to use
The problem is we don't really know. I used to work on that area, so if you need help with that, message me.
Awesome, thanks.
Cool. Do folks have anything else? Yeah, go for it, Felix. It's all you.
Okay, so over the past months, I found a couple annoying issues that appear on macOS and Linux, and they've all been labeled with issue discussion. And I've been asking, like, hey, why is this labeled as issue discussion if it's like clearly a bug? And the response was always, well, we don't have a Mac to test, so we can't verify, and we need more information. Is there something to do about this situation? Because some of these things really like make it annoying to use PowerShell on Windows.
Yeah, I'm not. No, go ahead, Steve.
So Felix, it should not be true anymore. Like, we have a number of Macs available on the team now, so and I use a MacBook Pro all the time as a point of self-hosting. So if you have a bunch of issues open already and you're getting that kind of pushback, can you just CC me on those specific issues and I'll look into it?
Yeah, sure.
Also me
was
as well.
Was that Steve just talking?
Yeah.
Cool.
And Travis EZ13, I mentioned that as well. I'm happy to look into those as well.
There's a bunch of us on the team that actually just use Mac exclusively.
I think about half of us now.
So I don't know who's making those orders.
Yeah.
And everyone else has like Ubuntu VMs or something.
Yeah. Yeah, we should. It shouldn't be happening anymore. So yeah, just definitely CC.
Do you have an
those
example issue number for chance?
One example is 5983.
Oh.
And another is 7744.
Okay. Yeah, I think we can. We just got to look into this stuff, and typically, like the issue bug versus issue discussion thing. I think we've moved more towards a we'll say. Like review waiting on author or something like that. I think that's the needs more information. Is that how we're doing that now, Steve?
Yeah, if it's not clear, but I mean, like, I'm just looking on your screen. It looks like this one should be pretty clear. But I mean, I think one of the things that maybe would have affected this is that my team was really busy with the 6.1 release for some period of time, so we weren't looking deeply into every single issue that was open, and we were relying on some of our community folks, which is awesome. But maybe a lot of our community folks don't have Macs, so they weren't able to report themselves and get a definitive answer. So hopefully we'll get
so Ilya,
get a better customer experience soon.
We can just sort of clarify with Ilya, and he is one of our community collaborators and does a lot of the issue triage on our behalf. So we can just clarify with him the sort of discussion versus bug thing, and I think this is like you're making a perfectly reasonable question. So I think it's a fairly easy matter for us to address.
Cool, thanks.
Thank you for bringing it up. This should ensure going forward that we mark bug, for example. I can type here. This guy. Cool. Awesome. Does anybody have, what do we got here? There are a bunch of resolution duplicate issues to be closed. Yeah, we should just do, that's a good point. Look through resolution, duplicate, resolution star, especially resolution duplicate and close old one. There's and this is I think we're going to be doing some of that issue management too as part of our probably a good thing to look into and just make sure that our issues are clean, and that we may even want to take a VS Code style approach to having these expire at some point in time, because we're starting to build that horrific cruft of 1.5-year-old issues or whatever. So
you can set up the scale bond.
Yeah. And of course, Ignite. If anyone's coming to Ignite, anybody coming to Ignite +1s across the board? Can I give this AKMS link for its PowerShell at Ignite?
It's not ready.
It's not ready? Okay. Okay, we will be tweeting from PowerShell team a AKMS link. I can post it here and just say this is going to be ready, right? I'll put it in the notes too.
Sure.
So this is, and Edwin had one further up as well that I think was done by the community, but we're doing this AKMS PowerShell at Ignite. Awesome to hear. Can't wait to see everybody there. Sorry, Friedrich, wish you could be there. But yep.
Moneyball, whatever the right term is, which we can.
Okay. Yeah, I will also include a link to anybody that is coming that wants to, maybe is interested in a customer engagement sort of session for talking about your scenarios and that sort of thing. We'll be putting out a survey to see if anybody might be willing to join that sort of thing. So just keep your eyes peeled on the PowerShell team Twitter, and we're going to have a bunch of good links to post for anybody going to Ignite. Any for PSConf Asia? Yep, I think who's going to PSConf Asia? Tyler, Dongbo, Steve, I think is going.
Yes.
I think Heyman's going.
Jeffrey's going.
Jeffrey's going.
Twitter a lot.
Yes. So definitely, unfortunately, I will not be there, but have fun because you're going to have a blast, and I will see the rest of you at Ignite. So thanks, everybody, for joining, and I think we're going to be signing off now. Appreciate it.